So much, Sean. So good to see you. Oh, thank you so much for an evening of poetry with me and one of my heroes and role models, Hyde E. Erdrich. So we've done a lot of readings together, I mean, over the years in general, but also recently. So I decided to read something I don't think Hyde has heard. Um, um, and it's the middle section from my newest book. And I often don't read it. I mean, I tend to write long poems in general. This is longer, but I think we'll still be under my time limit. And then it has these illustrations. So I'll just pause and show them, even though it won't be that dramatic from this distance, but I do like sharing them. Okay. So it's in section 3, and the title of section 3 is "The Underworld Holds All Tethers." And then there's an epigraph by the Korean poet Kim Hae-soon. Women in Korean myths disappear after giving birth. The reason they were born is to produce sons. But there is one myth where no female disappears. It is a fable of the foremother of shamans. Aradegi was the 7th daughter of a king and was abandoned because she was a girl. And she came back from a pilgrimage to the world of the dead. She saved her father and became the foremother of exorcists who helped lead those who have died into heaven. So there's 12 sections. And so this is a collaboration between myself and Ginny Yu, a Korean Canadian artist. And I would write a section and send it to her, and then she would do the illustration, usually just kind of a couple days in between. So it was really fast and really a wonderful experience. So the section's called Gaze, Observatory, Threshold, a Baradegi Reimagining. And this is the first drawing. They're all pencil. And she does a lot of doors and portals and thresholds, and that just immediately drew me to her work because I thought I saw this epic journey of this Korean girl as a series of doorways. Here's the next one. 1. The king, a man under a gold hole, gave birth to a 7th daughter. The queen, under a second, smaller gold hole, turned herself inside out, but no son could be found among the folds of her royal robes. The king took birth. Every child born is followed by a shadow child, their placenta. The queen delivered the placenta, and it jumped up and landed on the windowsill and flew away, leaving a necklace of blood drops on the ground below until it was out of sight. The king looked at his 7th daughter, and the 4 corners of the room turned black and empty and rose up and gathered around his head and engulfed him in darkness as if he were an object in a bojagi. A thick, tight, invisible knot formed over him. He clapped his hands. The queen caught the air between her teeth. The king called for a box, 6 small doors attached at the edges, a small movable grave. A servant brought a jade box and carved Baridegi on the cover, abandoned child. The newborn was placed inside the box, and the box was carried to a stream, and the stream decided to become thicker than jade, and thus the jade box floated along with the current. I should say I took a lot of liberties. Most of the very bare outlines of the story are here, but the rest of it, don't go around saying like, oh, this is traditional Korean details. It's not. The stream made a rough green ribbon, a long door. A few drops of dark liquid fell onto the river as something flew by overhead. The water swallowed the memory and it sank to the bottom among the stones. Number 2. The box called out to an old married couple passing by, cast away. The wife and husband bent over the stream and saw the jade box held by the layers of water. Have you seen water form a staircase? Did you emerge from your mother by way of water, knife, or an invisible rope of shame? The old woman lifted the heavy lid and beheld a small pearl. The old man looked and saw a square of fine white silk. Not until the child gave a hearty cry did they see that it was not a pearl and it was not a square of silk, but a baby girl. Baradeki, Bari Gangju, princess abandoned. Concentric circles, salt, sand, glass, bone, blood. Only one person at a time can pass gracefully through a truly round door, no matter how big it is. When a square is placed within a circle, there is a surplus of unusable darkness. This 3. 3. Years passed like a door glancing down at its own shadow, waxing and waning, opening, closing. Our skeleton inside us like a second person, the marrow thinking its rich red thoughts. The vertebral column stacked like wood. A fire cannot appear without its lover, air. A princess does not exist without a king or queen first. A king does not need a princess until. The child grew to be kind, hardworking, and observant. As she rinsed the rice for the day's meals and the water grew cloudy and milky, she felt something clarifying in her spirit, as if starch were being washed away gently. Meanwhile, in the royal court, her father, the king, fell ill. Every medicine was brought to him: bark, seed, root, horn, organ, petal, oil, tea, tincture, bell, prayer, salt. And in person, these are quite large. 4, at the beginning of year 15, the king grew weaker and weaker. The queen said, "I can almost see through you. You are becoming transparent in certain light. For example, the late afternoon. Perhaps your spine is made of hammered gold." The king said, "I'm turning into air, into absence." Later that evening, the king fell into a deep sleep. His bed became a vast doorway. Its rich canopy became the eye of night. It blinked its fringed lashes. The king fell through the dark rectangle and kept falling. It was 5. The king slept. A dream entered him like smoke. The smoke formed into a parade of small things: an iridescent fish scale, a mottled gray pebble, a white scrap of cloud. The jury of things surrounded the king, outlining his body, and began emitting a soft hum. He understood in his mind what they were telling him, that he was suffering and dying because of the 7th daughter he put into a jade box and pushed away like a regret. "If you would be well, your daughter must make a journey to the underworld. There she must obtain holy water and bring it back to you. But are you ready to be well?" That's a Tony Cade Bambara illusion. Okay, this is 7 or 6. Still asleep, he received a vision of her, the princess, with her arms raised, red ropes tied along each arm, making lines to the earth. For 2 more days, he slumbered. A maple tree grew up through the floor and around his platform bed. Black vines followed like 100 obedient children. On the 3rd day, the beautiful front gates opened and the king's officials walked a girl into the compound. The current of air from the movement of the gates reached the king and he opened his eyes. 7. The girl was indeed the Princess Baradegi. She removed her simple shoes before entering the palace. Her shoes rested together, 2 small boats. It seemed as though they shared one shadow. The queen ran to embrace her youngest daughter, but first held up the girl's arms, looking for red ropes, but there were none that she could see or feel. Baradegi bowed deeply to her parents. The body of a child is both a debt and a time machine. The king told his daughter about his dream and the cure that only she could procure. Princess Baradegi glanced down at her palms and saw pity and duty. Her knuckles spelled haunt and mercy. She told the parents who had abandoned her that she would save her father. She reunited with her white shoes. She walked back through the compound's gates and onward, beginning a journey beyond the world of the living. The moon rose and bloomed like a flower. 9. One foot in front of the other, stepping on pine needles, pressing them into the brown dirt, they lay like a small, headless arrow behind her. As she got farther away, the needles began to slowly turn, orienting toward her retreating figure like metal shavings near a magnet. I feel like this was a bait and switch. It's really not poetry. Um, it's, I mean, it's all just words, but you know, what the trees continue to gift us, their oil, their resin, their feathers, pins and needles, a pair of hands carved from deadfall. A princess without servants needs these shadow limbs to carry out her duty, the cracked arms of trees above, the quilted clouds. And as it neared midnight, she approached the entrance to the underworld. It did not shimmer. A door in the mountain opened like a mouth, like an ear, like a cut. She paused. She pulled out a handful of rough salt from a cloth pouch tied to her waist. Rubbing the white rocks between her palms, she crushed them against each other and ground them down into smaller and smaller grains, white crystals, translucent, but they captured the light from the moon and wouldn't let it go. 11. Another set of stairs, an escalator shimmered, then disappeared. Baradegi stepped onto a circle of blackness and fell down to the center of the world, a shaft like a sentence. All girls fall at the same rate. She asked for the water of life from the king of the underworld. He said, if. Tasks were given to her for 9 years, and Baradegi completed them all. Tasks for the unpassed spirits. These dead were immigrants caught on the border between the world of the living and the underworld. She released them all like a knife through a fruit stem. She knit the air into white steam, a raft, a door, and opened it for the dead. Then red circles were painted on her cheeks, and she married this king of the dead. She bore him 7 sons, one by one, a growing, breaking, squall, milk, eyes, skin, a door. A jar of water appeared at her feet. She tied it to a wooden frame and put it on her back. Her 7 children followed her out of the mountain. When she returned to her parents' palace, the gates opened for her. Her footfalls from years ago had turned the ground white. Her father still, his body quiet on his raised bed, the 4 posters like flags. Her mother, sisters, regarded Baradegi with wonder. Their silk dresses rustled as they leaned toward the bed. Baradegi, the castaway, the returned, poured a drop of water into his mouth, and he woke and lived. Out of her pouch tied to her waist, Baradegi brought forth a skein of red rope, the rope the king had dreamed about long ago. She handed one long red piece to her mother and each sister until there were none left. Bowing low to her parents, she gazed downward as if she could see through the doors of the earth. She raised her children and put her ears to the doors of the sky. For the rest of her long life, she dedicated herself to guiding spirits to the afterlife, helping the fallen, the wandering, and even the abandoned. And here's 12. After many years, Baradegi's work was complete. The king of the underworld brought her a flask of the water of life. It was surprisingly heavy, as if it were filled with dark silver. As she walked out of his kingdom, she took out the small bag of salt and poured it out. The grains sank into the ground and disappeared. 7 minutes. Okay, I'll read a few sections from this longer piece from my second book, Rough and Savage, which is based on, in particular, Robert Pinsky's first translation of the Inferno. So this section or this sequence is called Kingdom of the Light, Kingdom of the Dark, a monologue in 7 parts. And it takes 7 kind of monikers or epithets of Satan. The Watcher. The little match girl's limbs are like spindles. I turn them in my hands for heat that never arrives. Call me to your banquet, young one. Sing me closer, sing me sewn into your pocket. The Slanderer. My name itself means accuser, to be hostile, to hate, to be hated. Yet I know your afflictions and your poverty. What shall be the utterance of the day? What circus of calumny, what storm of defamation may I bring to you? Listen, my beloved brethren, were you not born to be poor? Cast aside your riches, cast aside your possessing of all things, cast aside thy burdens and teachings, all that lie heavy in the mouth. The Scapegoat. I will drive you into the wilderness, uninhabit me, your fingernails horned and rifled like a seashell, smitten, stricken, afflicted. The goat shall bear upon you this face through the fog of atonement. Azazel, my cliff, my Christ, my pharmakos, my famine. I wandered lonely as a cloud. My last hot meal was a stone full of rain. I have discovered poets like to say penultimate, and I have to get with the times. So this is the penultimate section of this poem. Astray, fugitive. On my knees, plates and shanks of bone pushing outward until my skin is white, red, scraping the dirt, pebbles and flesh. Live here at this carnival to see you in the unfolding of mirrors. In truth, there are no horns, tail, virgins, wives, no black-lapped coven, hair thick with the scent of broken pine needles. I blushed once, then never again. My blood was borne away for other uses. A bloom, a blossom, snow white and rose red. Can I be the daughter and the tiger at the door? The great chuffing bear at the stream and the steel-colored glint of evening. If I had a fur coat like his, I would eat the rust from your body, coin you and spend you at every revelry. My name never painted, never rustic on the signs of the traveling sideshow. This is dust, a gluttony of amusement. I at last am raising flesh. The Artist. It is I, not he, the one who draws your bath, separates the steam from the heavy rope of water. How do you record the con perpetrated upon us all, we, the lesser? I trained as an astronomer when the earth was a flat dish of dirt when it was drowning in sand. None of us can eat glass, not even I, but I make the gesture. Here with you in your embrace, armed resistance, stand, prison, my house. Our child, the future opens like a night flower. Its perfume makes me forget, makes me cry out. I am broken across the body of the earth, rock and willow, a thing green. Everything I make is unmade, a bed in the morning, your memory of me. Now for some fun with Moby Dick, and this will be the last poem. I can't resist. So this is a semi-erasure, of one of the chapters, The Whiteness of the Whale. And so you can see the whole thing in gray, and then I'm just gonna read the black, like the black parts. So this is called Whiteness, a Spell Thrown. What the white whale was to Ahab has been hinted. What at times he was to me as yet remains unsaid. Whiteness refiningly enhances beauty, even barbaric. Siam, one figure of a snow-white Austrian empire, human race itself, white man, mastership over every dusky tribe. Whiteness has been gladness, a white day, innocence of brides, whiteness, majesty of justice, kings and queens, milk-white steeds, symbol of divine spotlessness and power, white forked flame, holiest on altar, great Jove himself, snow white bull. Latin word for white, sacred vesture, white is the passion of our Lord, white robes redeemed, great white throne, holy one, white like wool, sweet, honorable, sublime. Innermost idea strikes more panic to the soul. Thought of whiteness coupled with any object terrible, heighten terror furthest bounds, white bear of the poles, white shark of the tropics, smooth, flaky whiteness, transcendent horrors, ghastly whiteness, abhorrent mildness, loathsome, dumb, gloating, white shrouded, albatross, pale dread, white phantom, first through that spell. Thank you so much.